Welcome into the Early Edge NFL Pick Show, brought to you by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. We had an exciting week one, finally, because last year, the last few years, I feel like we're sort of a dud. And now we're going to go through all of the week two slate, all 16 games. We got the whole squad with us, RJ White in studio. We have Larry Hartstein coming in, Will Brinson. It's going to be a party, guys. And I don't know if you are into trends. I'm not really. They're not predictive, but something really interesting I saw. Just over 10% of teams that started the season 0-2 made it to the playoffs since 2000. So can we call week two crucial, RJ, or is that kind of crazy?
Yeah, it can be. I mean, there's certainly teams that have things to prove. So if they get out to an 0-2 start, and we already had questions going into the season, it's going to be really hard to consider that they could be on a playoff track at this point. All
right, we'll see which teams fall victim to that 0-2 start as we break down week two, starting with Thursday night football. We've got Commanders, we've got Packers. Packers laying 3.5. We're seeing the total around 48. And we all have a mixed bag. We've got props, we've got unders, we've got sides. RJ, we'll go with you first. Tell us why it's a lean on the under for you.
Yeah, both teams coming off impressive defensive showing. Green Bay allowed 3.8 yards per play to Detroit. Washington, 3.7 yards per play to the Giants. Green Bay's offensive line and the receiver group are pretty beat up, and it's a short week of prep. So we'll see how many of those guys are able to go. I have a much lower floor on this offense than normal. Typically, I would expect them to probably score 20, mid-20s, high 20s in this game. I think they could be in the teens in this one. So Parsons may also be ready for more playing time if he gets in. He had a lot of success against Washington's offensive line last year. I know they have some new guys in, but Josh Connerly, the rookie, did not look great in his opening game. So, he had 4.5 sacks in 2 games against him. Maybe he gets another double-digit sack game in this game. So I think a lower scoring game for me, lean under 48.
Yeah, and to see what Micah did, he played just 45% of the snaps, but he still had a sack and 3 pressures. So you imagine the longer leash they give him, just how much scarier that's going to be. Larry, you like Austin Eckler over 2.5 catches. Tell us why.
Yeah, well, the Packers pass rush that you talked about, that caused Jared Goff to dump the ball off 14 times to his running backs. And you look at the Washington backfield with Chris Rodriguez inactive last week. It's Austin Eckler, the pass-catching back. You also have Jeremy McNichols, and you have the rookie, Krosky Merritt. And he didn't get, none of them got any catches except for Austin Eckler. That was in a game they led wire to wire against the Giants. They could be trailing in this game. I think Austin Eckler is also a ladder candidate for 5, maybe 6 grabs.
All right, and Will, you are taking a side. You're going to be the lone guy here taking the side, the 3.5 with the Commanders. Tell us what swayed you in this direction. Of course, getting past that key number of 3, but why else?
Yeah, I mean, that's a big factor, right? You're getting the 3.5. I don't think it would be that shocking if it closes at 3. You see a lot of those 3.5s juiced out in the market. Jaden Daniels, this guy is just a gamer. I mean, he has a 74% completion percentage in primetime games. That is the highest percentage since 1970. This is a guy that is not afraid to go out and show out in a big game. I do think the Micah Parsons thing against a team that he knows well, having played in Dallas, is a problem. But I think the Lions were trying to figure things out on offense with a new coordinator last week. I think Washington is ready to roll, looks sharp. Bill Merritt, the rookie running back, coming in and running the ball well. I agree with RJ. I don't think it'd be a high-scoring game. I think it's a field goal win for Green Bay at best, though.
Yeah, when we look at a guy like Terry McLaurin, get flashes of A.J. Brown week 1. They have a quiet week 1. You just have to imagine what they can bring in week 2, which obviously will give a boost to that offense. I'm going to lean Commanders here, but Jaden Daniels over on rush attempts. It's an easy cash, I feel like, every week, and I'm just waiting for them to boost the number up. But RJ is at 8.5, which is still high, but that's what he averaged right around there, just under 9 last season. You imagine the pressure that he's going to face, which he saw in week 1. And even if, because I know the protection is better, even with this protection being better, they are their best team when he's using his legs. He's going to get flushed out of the pocket, and that's where he's most comfortable. He had the highest scramble rate last season, and he was the most successful. How do you feel about that number quick, the 8.5?
Yeah, you could also see him getting more design runs. I know they made a lot of hay about Chris Rodriguez being the short yardage goal line back, and then they made him inactive in week 1. So if he's not going to be active in this game, some of those carries might go to Daniels.
Yeah, 9-1 too. This squad is when he has 10 or more carries. I'm going over there. We got the Sunday slate coming up next, right after this. Welcome back to the Early Edge here on CBS Sports. We've got a whole squad today. RJ White in studio. We've got Larry and Will joining us. We're breaking through all 16 games of this Week 2 slate. We broke down Thursday night, and now we move on to the 1 p.m. Sunday slate, starting with a matchup I'm always excited to watch because I just like to watch Josh Allen play. Jets are just sort of there. Bills laying 6.5 against the Jets. We're seeing a total of 46, which I do lean over on. I think we'll see a lot of offense here. Larry, which way do you lean?
Definitely towards the Jets, and there is a 7 out there, and that's the way I would look with this team that ran for 182 yards, had a very functional offense. Justin Fields was navigating the pocket, buying time, hitting Tyler Johnson for 24 yards, hitting Garrett Wilson for 21 yards, extending plays, not to run, but to actually go downfield against a Bills team that, yes, pulled off the most impressive comeback that I've ever seen, but they also gave up 238 yards on the ground to Baltimore. Now they're facing what looks to be a pretty dynamic rushing attack. I'm going to take the points with the Jets, with the Bills coming off kind of a Super Bowl win, potentially a preview of the AFC title game.
It really was such a stunner, and I loved how Josh Allen said, we knew. Yeah, we were down, but we knew what we were capable of. No, we know what you're capable of, Josh. It's pretty much just you. I see that we're split here now. Larry, Will are on the Jets. You and I, RJ, are on the Bills. So, Will, anything else to add to what Larry said?
Yeah, Larry nailed it with the rushing from the Jets against the Steelers and then what the Bills gave up. Just to add on to that, not only did they give up 238 yards, they gave up 8.2 yards per carry to the Jets. To the Ravens, excuse me. Like that's a red flag for a Jets team that really wants to run. Ran it 39 times in week 1 for 182 yards.
Yeah, man, that is absurd. RJ, you say you're leaning Bills 6.5. We're under that key number of 7. Why is it just a lean for you?
I thought the Jets were impressive. I actually was higher on the Jets than a lot of people. I thought that offense had a lot of potential. Was really concerned about what I saw about the defense. The game that they gave up to Aaron Rodgers was pretty, shocking to me. And now you're facing Josh Allen, as you said.
Yeah.
So the Bills could score 40 in this. Again, would not shock me. Can the Jets keep up, especially when they fall behind? It's only a lean to me because I was impressed with the Jets. If it is a tight game throughout, it increases their odds. But if they fall behind, we've got to see if Justin Fields can do it with those passing game weapons that he has. So.
Yeah, the Jets offense really did look impressive. You had Breece Hall with over 100 yards, Garrett Wilson with just under 100. Outside of them, there wasn't much, but I think the big focal point was Justin Fields, who looked good both on the ground and through the air. But if we're talking explosion, it's going to come from the Bills' side. Allen completed 7 passes of 20 or more yards. That's explosive. So I think that's going to cause some trouble for the Jets. I'm with you on the lean there. All right, Patriots. Close to my heart. Boston girl, now a Floridian, but Boston girl at heart against the Dolphins. Dolphins laying 1.5, total of 44. Will, let's go to you first. You like the Dolphins here?
Yeah, you're not supposed to move from Boston to Florida until like your late 70s.
I'm trying to get away from the winter, Claudia. Man. Okay.
Yeah, that's what you do when you're ready to retire. No, but nevertheless, look, I think in this game, this is a real telling game for both teams because it matters a lot. We talk about those 0-2 starts to the season. Miami became the first team to give up a score on every defensive possession since 1970 against the Colts last week. Just horrendous all across the board. The Patriots, on the other hand, haven't scored 30 points since October 16, 2022. That is a wild stretch. I'm going to go Dolphins here, and it's mostly in a bounce-back spot. I think the fact that they're favored, nobody's going to want to take the Dolphins. Tua has an impeccable record against New England, and I think they protect a little bit better. He gets the ball out. Tyreek Hill shows up. Maybe. I'm hoping. I think the Dolphins in a very low-scoring, ugly game here in what should be pretty warm weather in South Florida.
Okay, I need a battle here. Larry, make me feel better about my Pats. It looks like you're leaning that way.
Yeah, well, typically you do want to back the team that got humiliated in week 1. They generally bounce back. But I said this last week on the show. The Dolphins have a very good starting offensive line. But if anyone gets hurt, they have maybe the worst depth in the NFL. 3 plays into the game, they lose James Daniels, their starting guard. And then basically two of those picks were a direct result of the pressure that he got. Austin Jackson is also out for this game. And there is a guy named Christian Gonzalez who could be back for the Patriots to help slow down Tyreek Hill. So I respect more that the Patriots got 336 total yards. Yes, they didn't punch it into the end zone, but they looked a lot more functional. I'll take the Patriots to get to 1-1.
Yeah, Gonzo being back is going to be huge for that secondary. I do want to mention, not only did Tua struggle, but it was pretty glaring, guys. He finished with the worst QBR of the week, 2.7. For comparison, Lamar Jackson had a 94, RJ. That's not great. On the other side, we have Drake May. You're going under on a prop for him.
Yeah, I like under rushing yards for Drake May. I don't think the books have adjusted quite yet to the fact that all those yards that came last year were scrambles, and Josh McDaniels just is not going to want him to do that.
Yeah.
We saw last week it was 4 carries, 11 yards. I think that's going to be relatively closer to his normal line, maybe a little bit more. But when BetMGM released this Tuesday night, it was around 28.5. And I think that's still way too high. So I'm playing this down to at least 24.5. I don't know if it's still on the board. I think they might be rethinking things there.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely looking to play Drake May unders. Early worked for us on the SportsLine site last week, so I'm going to go back to it.
Second highest scramble rate last season behind Jaden Daniels. A lot of that had to do with the offensive line. Trust me, I know. I threw the Pats in a teaser with the Bears. Bears backdoor covered, thankfully. So I have 7.5 with the Patriots because I'm soft. Jags Bengals up next. We got the Jags catching 3.5. Total higher at 49.5. Will, we'll go back to you here. You like the Jags. It looks like we're actually all on the Jags, so we can help each other out here. Some quick hits all around. Will, you go first.
Yeah, I think Jacksonville looked really good in that week 1 game. Now, with week 1, you have to be careful because it was against the Panthers. The Panthers might be a bottom 5 team in the NFL. Bryce Young looked terrible. They couldn't put up anything to try and really find out if Jacksonville's defense was good. But offensively, I thought Trevor Lawrence looked really sharp. There's a reason Liam Cohen leaped to the front of the Coach of the Year odds. And, Cincinnati, they won. Congratulations. You got the win. It's the lowest yardage output in a win since the 70s. I mean, this is horrendous after that first scripted drive of 78 yards. I think Jacksonville is prepared to go into Cincinnati, keep this close. I don't think Cincinnati will slow the Jags down. I think Trevor Lawrence has a nice game. We see a little more Brian Thomas usage. Brenton Strange looks awesome for Jacksonville. And the fact that it's 3.5, wouldn't be surprised if it closed 3, like getting the Jaguars in a game where I think we end up with the Bengals or Jaguars kicking a field goal to win the game.
RJ, it feels crazy even to look at that Trevor Lawrence versus Joe Burrow and say, yeah, I'd take the points with the Jags, but why are you doing that in week 2?
Yeah, I think Cincy was fortunate to just win. They had those 2 interceptions, and they were really just like volleyball sets. The guy put it up to the guy, and he intercepted it. So definitely could have lost that game. I don't want to I don't want to overreact to Jacksonville winning against a beat-up Carolina team. The run game does look much improved, and that can be the key to winning this game. Overreaction angle, like to play against the overreactions from the look-aheads. This one moved 2 points off the look-ahead. Typically, I'd be on Cincy there, but I think this line should be other side of 3 as well. So that's why I'm leaning that way.
Larry, put a bow on it for us.
Yeah, I don't want to overreact either, but when you rush for 200 yards, you don't give up a sack. And most importantly, the secondary looks better with Eric Murray forcing an interception, 7 tackles. Jordan Lewis with the 3 pass breakups also had a pick. So I think Jacksonville's defense is a little bit better.
All right, quick hitter, Browns, Ravens. Ravens, big old 10.5 point favorite. RJ, you're leaning a first half here.
Yeah, I like the Ravens in the first half, -6.5. They should come out angry after letting that one slip away. The latest one. We know they did it last year, too, with the Raiders. They came back, and I think they played well early in that game, but it was a pretty close score. Cleveland has no run game to respect, so Baltimore can focus on stopping Joe Flacco with the depth they have in the secondary there. Might see a defensive or a special teams touchdown in the first half, and then we're really looking like we're good there. So I'm fine with playing the full game spread, too, but getting under that key number of 7 to have -6.5 in the first half I like.
All right, Will, I know you're taking full game Ravens. Anything to add there?
Yeah, I'll take the Ravens here, but that's sort of I've got to pick it. Don't love Baltimore. It's a huge spread. We've seen the first 2 weeks of the last 2 years. Very few double-digit wins. I think 6 total in the first week, and then 4 in week 2 last year. So a little cautious here with the Ravens at double digits.
All right, and Larry, you and I both are a lean on the Browns. Talk to me about them. Offense looked solid. Is that a good word, right? 2 picks from Flacco. I'm not feeling great about it, though.
Yeah, I mean, 31 completions. Even if we're down 17 in the fourth quarter, we can get the backdoor cover. And, that Cleveland defense, which allowed 7 yards in the second half, and Myles Garrett taking over the game in the fourth quarter, at least gives us a shot.
All right, gentlemen, we move on to the Sunday slate after the break. Big divisional matchup coming up with the Giants and the Cowboys. That's going to be a good one. We'll be right back here on The Early Edge. Welcome back to the Early Edge, running through all 16 games of Week 2. We've got RJ, we've got Larry, Will, and me, Claudia Bellofatto. Thanks for hanging out with us. Let's start with this Giants-Cowboys divisional matchup. Cowboys laying 6 despite laying an egg in the second half of the first week against the Eagles. We're seeing a total here at 44.5. RJ, I'm all over, I should say, the under here. I don't really see where the points are going to come from. Neither team can really run the ball. Dak faced the 7th highest pressure rate in Week 1. We know what that Giants front is capable of. I don't see the passing game working on either side, certainly not the Giants, whose head coach didn't even want to name Russell Wilson as their starting quarterback. Which way do you lean here? It looks like Giants. Any feel in the total at all?
Yeah, I think under is probably the smarter play, and then of course you get those lower scoring games, points become at a premium. I also know that the look ahead was 3 here, and so when you get that much movement based off of Dallas looking good in a game where they got to play without Philly's best defensive player just randomly that nobody expected. So I agree. I think the running game is going to look a lot worse for wear in this game. I might use the Cowboys in Survivor. I think they're going to win.
Oh, okay.
But I don't think it's going to be by 6 points. I think just you're getting so much line value that you got to take the Giants here.
All right, a Survivor play. So, Will, you very much disagree here because you're on the Giants.
Well, I would say I lean towards the Giants. As RJ mentioned, the line movement here from the look ahead, 3 full points. I have to think it's more about the Giants being downgraded than the Cowboys being upgraded. I think Dallas looks a lot worse if Jalen Carter plays in that game in Week 1. But Russ is playing for his job at this point. We'll see if that matters at all. They've got to get in the end zone. They didn't last week. I think they can move the ball a little bit. The Giants can against this Cowboys defense. Jaden Blue being active would be a big win for Dallas too. We'll see if that happens. I would take the points with the Giants. I think the Survivor look with Dallas is pretty decent. Don't love this game with the spread.
I guess I'm just ignoring the points. I just want you guys to fight. I'm like, tell him why he's wrong, but we're talking about 6 points, which is a pretty big difference. Larry, I'll fight with you, though, because I'm on the under. You're on the over. Tell me why.
Well, the Cowboys are built for shootouts. They don't pressure the quarterback. Dak played an unbelievable game. If his receivers could catch, and if the weather had held up, that could have been like a 38-28 type of final. And I feel bad for anyone who had the over in that game with 41 points before halftime and then only a field goal after. But I think Russ is going to, this is it. Russ has to produce. They have to hit some shots downfield, and he's going to have time in the pocket. And on the other side, I think the Cowboys, Dak will get rid of the ball before the Giants pass rush hits him too many times, and this one flies over.
Well, again, trends, I've got him whether or not they're predictive. Dak has done well in this matchup, 13 straight wins against the Giants. Trends not nice to the Giants. They started 0-2 in 9 of the previous 12 seasons. All right, we've got the Rams, we've got the Titans. Titans catching 5.5 here, total around 42. Larry, we'll go right back to you here. Tell us why you like the under.
Yeah, I think it's another tough day for Cam Ward against a defense that pressured the quarterback over 41% of the time. And the Titans, they put together 4 scoring drives. That was the good news. The bad news, they totaled 65 yards in those 4 scoring drives. And we know Sean McVay will be very happy to play a conservative game plan on the road, run the ball, and get out of there with the win. Tennessee, their defense played well, held Denver to 4.5 yards per play. So give me the under.
RJ, you're on the same page here. Tell us why.
Yeah, questions on both offensive lines. J.C. Latham knocked out for the Tennessee. Both Rams guards dealing with ankle sprains. We're going to have to monitor the injury report here. But if those guys are out and Latham is able to play, I love the Titans here, especially if you can get the 6, which is popping up in a few places. So it's questionable whether you'll be able to get that later in the week with a favorable injury report. But yeah, I agree with what Larry said. Love the under. Really like Tennessee unders this year, especially early on as Cam Ward gets his feet under him.
Yeah, getting his feet under him, though, I feel like is going to take some time. I was going to say a little bit of time, but I feel like it's going to take a chunk of time. He took a few bad sacks. The drop rate on his throws was more than double league average. Those are things I think you have to fix against a Rams squad that seemed to get the offense going pretty early. That Puka-Stafford connection was there right off the bat. So I do lean the Rams here, and it looks like you do too, Will.
Yeah, I like the Rams. As RJ mentioned, the interior offensive lineman is the key, though, because the Titans, if they're going to pressure you, it's going to be up the middle with those defensive tackles, Sweat and Simmons. And they got after Bo Nix. The difference here, though, is that Sean McVay will design a game plan to get the ball out of Matthew Stafford's hands quickly. Matthew Stafford won't make the mistakes that Bo Nix made. Bo Nix was horrible in this game. 2 terrible picks, a fumble where he had a shot downfield, didn't take it, got sacked, and then ran the ball 8 times for 18 yards, which is just wild. This Rams defense, as Larry points out, is really, really good. I think it's an underrated aspect of this Rams team, and I expect them to give Cam Ward trouble all day long. But I'll take the Rams, but I'm going to caution it. If those offensive linemen are out, I'll be a lot more hesitant to do so.
And you see that 6 sacks on Cam Ward. That is the most times in his NFL, of any quarterback in their NFL debut. All right, Bears-Lions, another great one. Lions laying 5.5. I had the Lions in one of my teasers last week. Raiders, easy cash. They win straight up. My God, Lions will be fine. Well, I was completely wrong. Will, what happened to the Lions and what do you expect this week?
Yeah, I think the Lions game last week was maybe more about the Packers defense than Detroit. Now, we didn't think that until Monday Night Football kicked off and we got to the second half and Ben Johnson had, a big old mess in his pants from trying to coach as a head coach and run the offense. And so I think you're going to see an angry Lions team in this spot all off season long. People have talked about the coordinators and how losing them is going to result in the Lions being bad. They get embarrassed in Green Bay in week 1, and now they get a Bears team that has a terrible offensive line, questions in terms of the coaching right now, and some questions about Caleb Williams and his decision-making and his throwing and accuracy. So I think the Lions are at a prime spot to blow out the Bears in a big way, run the ball down their throats to close it off in the second half, and remind people that Ben Johnson wasn't the reason the Lions were good the last few years.
Yeah, I mean, there's just such a higher ceiling than what we saw from the Lions. One of the best backfields in football, too. They couldn't even manage 50 yards on the ground. I know Larry and I are both on the Lions, so RJ, I want to get your quick take on the Bears here. You're going with the first half grabbing the points.
Yeah, I think Chicago seems to be the play for me with the players dialed in. King of the narratives, Will Brinson doesn't like the Bears going up with the former coach going against his team. He usually loves that spot in that first game there, so I'm kind of surprised that he's on the Lions
revenge,
there.
Baby.
Yeah, revenge against Ben Johnson for leaving is what you're saying. Yeah, I can't play Chicago without knowing if the D's going to be healthier after it fell apart late versus Minnesota. We had those surprise inactives in that game that really changed that game in the fourth quarter. I feel better about playing Chicago first half after Caleb looked really good in that first scripted situations where Ben Johnson knew what he wanted to do, really went on and executed, no incompletions, and then he looked bad from there. So if I'm going to play the Bears, it's not going to be on the full line. You guys are probably right about the full line. It's going to be that plus 3.5 in the first half.
What did you say, Will, about him, Ben Johnson and his pants?
He made 2 critical errors and kind of pooped his pants, if we're being honest.
That's the thing is, right, they won the Ben Johnson sweepstakes, but we have to remember a first-year head coach is still a first-year head coach. The Lions are at home where they went 7-2 last year, covered the spread in 10 consecutive games following a loss. Larry, you and I both on the Lions. Tell me why.
Yeah, and you know what's hard to do? Complete your first 10 passes and then finish as the most inaccurate quarterback in the entire NFL, and that's what Caleb Williams did. His completion percentage above expectation, minus 13.2%. That's how bad he was. If Jalen Johnson and Kyler Gordon are not back out there, the Lions are going to roll.
All right, a few different ways to approach that game. Let's move on to the Seahawks and the Steelers. Steelers laying that key number of 3, total sitting around 40. Will, we'll go back to you. You have a lean here on the under.
Yeah, look, it was everything went under last week except Steelers Jets. That makes total sense, of course, naturally. I do like this under there. I think the Seahawks defense showed up decently. I don't think Seattle is going to open things up offensively against Pittsburgh. And Pittsburgh's embarrassed by giving up all those points to the Jets, and that they show up in this spot, try to run the ball a lot more, and we see a lot less points from these two offenses. No more revenge game for Aaron Rodgers. All the battle between the Steelers and the Jets. I think we see a much more low-key approach from both teams. I like the under in this spot.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's making such a to-do about the Steelers. They weren't impressive enough for me to not want to take the 3 with the Seahawks, if that makes sense, Larry. It sounds like that makes sense to you because you're going to take the 3 as well.
Yeah, and the Seahawks were very impressive defensively. It's a shame a couple of plays went against them or else they would have had that home win. And I just think the Steelers were very fortunate to win that game when you get a fumble on a kickoff return, the Jets dropping what could have been a pick 6. I think it's a tight game down to the wire, so I have to take the points.
The only thing that concerns me, RJ, with Sam Darnold is he could not find any sort of rhythm. He had the second highest open coverage rate. So the nearest defender, 2 to 5 yard separation, still they couldn't get any rhythm going. Do you think we find that in week 2?
I think it's possible. Obviously, it's a new system for him. He's coming into a new team with new weapons. He has to get his timing down. That wasn't a problem for Aaron Rodgers. I do want to fade him coming off an elite performance. But the defense, giving up 6.4 yards per play to the Jets, really shocking stuff again from Pittsburgh. You would expect them to play a lot better. So I think a lot of that is injury driven. Derek Harmon, Malik Harrison, Deshaun Elliott, key guys on every level of the defense already ruled out for this game. I think the Seahawks offense can see an uptick here. So I like Seahawks +3. I think this line, when the whole Pittsburgh Steelers defense is healthy, should be south of 3. So with all those injuries, I think it's probably got to be closer to pick them.
All right, quick hit. 49ers Saints, 49ers laying 4.5.
Yeah, I'm taking the 49ers team total under 23.5. Injury concerns on both sides. I mean, New Orleans might not have Fuaga, the right tackle. Blackman's now done for the year, it looks like, at safety. The New Orleans defense held a much healthier Arizona side to 20 at home last week. Key's going to be Rattler avoiding turnovers. He had no turnovers in that game. If he does get some turnovers here, it'll be easier for 49ers on a short field to get over 23.5, but I like the under right now.
All right, Larry, quickly on the Niners lean.
Well, if Purdy is ruled out and it's Mac Jones, I'm going to look to play the Niners at -3 or less. A lot of guys are hurt, but CMC did have 142 yards.
No George Kittle, Juwan Jennings questionable. I don't know. I want nothing to do with this game. Will, where are you going with it?
I'm going under here. I think Kyle Shanahan wants to go down, play New Orleans, shorten the game as much as possible and get out of there as healthy as possible. And I don't see New Orleans capable of scoring more than 15, 20 points.
I just don't know how the Niners have such bad luck with injuries. All right, we continue with our Week 2 breakdowns up next. We're going through the 4 p.m. slate, Panthers, Cardinals, and a whole lot more right here on the Early Edge. We're back here on the Early Edge, brought to you by BetMGM. We've got RJ, we've got Larry, we've got Will, and Claudia breaking down all the Week 2 games for you. We're going to go through the afternoon games on the Sunday slate, starting with the Panthers, the Cardinals laying 6.5, RJ. Panthers managed just 10 points against the Jags. Bryce Young struggled. A touchdown, 2 interceptions, a lost fumble, just 4.4 yards per completion. Is it fair to say we might have to give up on Bryce Young, or is that crazy?
Well, he's down weapons. He was down the left tackle, Laquanu, in that game. So there's still, mitigating factors there. They did look poor in the preseason as well, so we thought it was going to be a slow start for the Panthers offense. I'm going to stick with that and go under 19.5 points in this game. Arizona's defense is dealing with injuries to their depth. They're better than Jacksonville's defense, and I think they'll similarly keep Carolina's offense in check here. So I want to fade the big move with Arizona being -4.5 on the look ahead. Now it's 6.5. I just can't do it with how this offense looks right now. So under Panthers team total.
I understand that, and I do have a lean on the Cardinals here. Kyler Murray on the other side looked good, 163 yards, 2 touchdowns, ran for 38 against the Saints. Saw a lot of pressure, a lot of sacks, but I don't think that's much of a concern here. Will, talk to me about why the rest of us are on the Cardinals.
Yeah, Panthers are really bad, particularly on defense. And offensively, they didn't do anything against Jacksonville. Bryce Young looked terrible, bouncing. Literally, I think Pete Briscoe called him in our group chat Bugs Bryce, because he was bouncing around so much in the pocket and even hopping when he threw. But defensively, this is the story for Carolina. They can't stop anyone. They have allowed 200-plus rushing yards in 7 straight games. That is ridiculous in the NFL, especially in the modern NFL when teams pass so much. Jacksonville averaged 6 yards per play last week, and I think Kyler and this Cardinals team with Trey Benson and James Conner are going to be able to move the ball on the ground easily against Carolina, come away with a pretty easy win. And I think if you want to bet the Cardinals, you should bet it now, because I bet it gets above 7 by Sunday afternoon.
I have to agree, especially after watching this segment, because we're all on the same side. I had to double check this stat because it sounds ridiculous. Panthers not only had the lowest pressure rate in Week 1, not only 0 sacks, but just 1 quarterback hit, Larry. How can you be that bad?
Well, I don't think they're this bad, but I have to side with everyone here, especially because Bryce Young, their guys weren't open either. 4th and 1, they decide to throw. There's nobody to throw to. And the Cardinals secondary is better than Jacksonville's. When you have Will Johnson, you have Budda Baker, you have Max Melton, they are going to lock down those receivers. It's going to be a lot on Chuba Hubbard to keep them in this game.
And not only should we see the passing game get going, but we just saw Travis Etienne put up 143 yards on the squad last week. So we'll see what happens on the ground game as well. All right, Broncos laying under that key number of 2.5 against the Colts. We have a total of 42. I'm going to be soft again and say this is a good teaser spot with the Colts to get it up to 8.5. RJ, tell me why you're going with the Broncos, though, on this regular line.
Yeah, easy call for me playing Denver. The market's rewarding Indy for looking, fantastic against the Dolphins. We know that probably a lot of injury issues with the Dolphins and the Dolphins just looking bad. Look ahead was Denver -3.5. That's probably closer to the right number here. I think we're overreacting to how bad Denver looked offensively. Titans have an underrated defense. And Denver won by 8, even with the offense having a terrible game. So if you get to play what might be a mediocre Colts team and have a bad offensive game, they committed 4 turnovers. That's not going to happen every week. I think a solid Denver offensive game can mean a rout here. Indy's D up against a much better offensive line. Denver's D gets to face Daniel Jones, who the market faded against Miami until the line got to pick them. Everybody was on Miami in that game, even though we spent the whole offseason fading the Dolphins on the futures market. So I thought that was interesting. So I like the Browns -2, or Broncos -2.
Yeah, if I had to go with the regular line, I'd probably lean that way. I'm giving myself wiggle room with the Colts, but you're right. If the offense has any sort of rhythm, they should blow them out of the water because of what the defense did. They had 6 sacks, forced 2 fumbles. We know they're one of the top defenses. The offense just needs some sort of flow, which, Larry, it sounds like you agree with RJ. Anything to add on the Broncos?
Yeah, that was an emotional home opener for the Colts, and Daniel Jones played basically a perfect game, mistake-free. Now let's see you do it against a team that had a pressure rate of 53%, the highest in the NFL. I need to see it against that kind of a defense, a competent performance with very few mistakes. Denver's the better team, and that's a huge line move to go through the 3. I'm right there with RJ.
Okay, Will, but the Colts at home, not a little more respect? All the talent that Miami has on their roster, they limited them to just 8 points. Do we not care at all? Not impressive?
I had the Dolphins like an idiot too, and it looks stupid. Here's the thing about the Broncos. If you look at that game and the way that things unfolded for the Titans and the Broncos, again, Bo Nix, 2 terrible interceptions that put the Titans in good spots. A muff punt that the Titans recovered that put them in a good spot. A fumble recovery that put them on the Broncos side of the field. And Tennessee still couldn't come away with very many points. This Broncos defense is the best in football, and I don't think it's remotely close. They're going to give Daniel Jones fits. The Colts don't have the weapons to really light up this defense. And I think Denver, with its running game, that might be a little bit better than people think. R.J. Harvey looks sharp in that matchup. I think Denver could steamroll this one. And if they get a lead, it's ball game.
And shout out to Danny Dimes, though. He faced the most blitzes in week 1, and he only had 2 hits, 1 sack. I think it's going to be a different story this week. A little bit of a different front. Eagles laying 1 against the Chiefs. We got a total of 47. Will, let's run it back to you. Revenge game. We got the Chiefs coming back from Brazil. No Xavier Worthy. Lots of storylines here.
Yeah. Look, this is a weird spot because if you're telling me I'm getting the Chiefs in a home opener at Arrowhead with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid off a semi-bye, ordinarily it would be a blind hammer the Chiefs. But I think if you strip away the aura that is Kansas City and all their success over the past few years, and you look at these 2 rosters and you look at where they are from a health standpoint, and you just, blindly assess the game, the Eagles are the much better team. And so I'm going to back the Eagles here. I think, this is just a squad that right now is running the ball really well. They have been for the entirety of all last year, of course. And then A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, not even involved in the win last week. I think we see some downfield shots by the Eagles. I had Philly very motivated to remind the Chiefs about the Super Bowl win, even though obviously it is a revenge spot for Kansas City.
Yeah, we saw Justin Herbert just carve up that defense last week. 318 passing yards, 3 touchdowns. I think it's not even going to be close, really. We're all on the same side. RJ, talk to me about the Eagles.
Yeah, it wasn't close in February. We saw this matchup.
Right.
And the Eagles lost some defensive players, obviously, into free agency, but Chiefs lost some pretty big players on offense for this game, with Rice and Worthy being out. Kelsey largely a non-factor despite the Worthy injury. I think that was probably the most shocking thing. Once Worthy goes down, you would expect Kelsey takes over that game and gets a ton of targets, and they were more interested in throwing it to Marquise Brown and Juju Smith-Schuster, so that was kind of shocking to me. Most notably, the Kansas City defense looked way worse than expected in the opener, as you alluded to. How are they going to have an answer for Philly this time around? around if that's how they looked in the opener. So I think you're right. I think it's going to be a blowout here. -1 is a pretty good number to take, or if you can get a money line of -110, love that too.
Larry, I don't want to skip over you. We have to go to break, but we can talk about the Eagles all season long, baby, so don't you worry. Up next on the early edge, we've got Sunday night football. We've got Monday night doubleheader. Lots of big ones. 2023 college football playoffs national title game rematch of the quarterbacks. We're breaking it all down. Michael Penix Jr., J.J. McCarthy, that's next on the early edge. Welcome back to the Early Edge, brought to you by BetMGM. We're with Larry, Will, RJ, and Claudia, breaking down the rest of the Week 2 slate. We've got Sunday night, we've got Monday night doubleheader, and we'll leave you with our best bets. Larry, let's go to you first in what I think is a very exciting matchup, as I mentioned, coming into the break here. Quarterback rematch from the 2023 national title game with the two QBs, Michael Penix Jr., J.J. McCarthy. It looks like you like the Vikings here, laying 4.5, which is sort of a weird number, right? Like we're over the key number of 3. Those extra points feel sort of strange. Tell me why you like it with the Vikings.
Well, with Drake London's status in doubt, there's a lot riding on this Falcons running game, and I don't think they can generate anything. They averaged 2.2 yards per carry in the opener. That was Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier, their combined average against this Minnesota defense, and probably the most underrated signings of the offseason, where they got Javon Hargrave and Jonathan Allen right in the middle of that defense. Those guys had 13 pressures between them, which is an insane amount for defensive tackles. And the Bears, it disrupted them pretty much most of the night after that opening drive. So I like the Vikings to handle their business and cover.
And they outscored Chicago in that fourth quarter, 21-7. So we know they can turn it on when they want to. Will, tell us why else we should be putting our money on the Vikings.
Yeah, I think if we're going to play into the narrative street, you know I love dribbling my ball down narrative lane. J.J. McCarthy, back-to-back games to open the season against quarterbacks that were drafted above him. Like, you know, these guys take that personally. We all know the story about Amon-Ra St. Brown and the list he has. I'm sure that McCarthy has some of that as well. I fully expect the Vikings to be able to move the ball in the air, or through the air, against this Falcons defense that just doesn't look like it has enough teeth. Thought McCarthy, you know, struggled early in that game against Chicago, of course, but then really got it together. They started to target Justin Jefferson the second half. And Kevin O'Connell, I mean, he's probably not the best coach in football, but he's definitely a top 5 coach in football. And he showed it on Monday night against the Bears, keeping that team together and coming away with a win. I like the Vikings here, laying the points.
And it just stinks, I don't lack of a better term for Atlanta fans, because they do have a ton of talent on this roster, RJ, but we have yet to see it come to fruition, which is probably part of why you're going under on this game.
Yeah, I like the under, despite the win. You know, I don't know if somebody told him that Caleb Williams was drafted ahead of him in the break before quarter 4, like Will is saying with his narrative, because he looked awful for 3 quarters, so maybe he just didn't realize Caleb Williams was on the other side. I think Darrison needs to be back to give that offensive line a boost. That offensive line was an issue there. Yeah. Atlanta having the question marks at receiver, like Larry talked about. Mooney missed week 1. London now dealing with a sprained shoulder. And you throw in Penix having to face this tough Flores defense. I think it's going to be a lower scoring game on both sides. Points at a premium, so I'm under 44.5.
All right, a few options there on side and one on the total. Bucs, Texans, Monday Night Football. We've got the Texans laying 2.5, the first of a doubleheader. We're seeing the total at 42.5. Baker Mayfield, last 7 career starts on Monday night. He's lost all of them. Trends are not predictive, so I don't really put too much into that. Let's see where you're going first. Will, start us off.
Yeah, I like Houston a lot in this game. You're getting less than the 3. You're at home. Your home opener. Again, you know, the way I look at that, I watched that Houston Rams game very closely last week because I'm a Rams fan. And Houston, like, the Rams defense is just good. I don't think Houston is that bad. They have offensive line issues for sure. They have running game issues for sure. I don't think they'll be able to run against Tampa because no one's run against Tampa in the last 10 years, but they're going to be able to pass the ball pretty effectively. I think Nico Collins has a monster game, and that defense for the Texans, probably a top 5 unit in the league right now. Not that soft coverage, not that sort of light defense that you saw from Atlanta against Tampa Bay, and I think those cornerbacks match up very well against what Tampa Bay wants to do. I like the Texans to win this game, not comfortably, but I love the 2.5.
And Larry, it looks like you do too. And of course, we're getting under that key number of 3. Tell us why else you like this squad.
Well, I love that trend you mentioned about Baker Mayfield. He didn't have a turnover in week 1, but he had 4 turnover-worthy plays, and the team had a 39% success rate. They were maybe the luckiest team to win in week 1, maybe aside from the Bengals, who should have lost that game. So I just think Tampa, we're getting that classic situation of a team that won and covered in week 1 against a team that lost and failed to cover, and you're getting the Texans at home, desperate to avoid an 0-2 start. They're going to show up, and Nico Collins is going to go nuts.
RJ, you're on the oppo side here with the Bucs, and I'm realizing now this is a good Wong teaser. Get through those 2 key numbers. If you want to throw in a 6-point teaser, which you could do with the Patriots, get the Bucs up to 8.5. But it looks like you don't mind the 2.5 here.
Don't mind the 2.5. I got it at 3. I would play it down to pick them. The overreaction angle, is interesting, and that's I think what Larry was alluding to there. But the Bucs at this line actually moved from -1.5 on the look ahead. So people are already rewarding Houston for a terrible performance where they lost their starting center. And I don't know that they're going to look much better in this game. Will mentioned the issues that they might have offensively with the run game with the offensive line. I love the Bucs here. I'm not even going to tease them like you said. I'm just going to play them outright. Got the 3, would take it down to 1 probably.
Yeah, all right. The second of the Monday night doubleheader is the Chargers and the Raiders. And I think back to the Raiders-Patriots game in week 1, of course, because I was watching that pretty closely. I do think the Patriots are better than they played, but not having Christian Gonzalez was huge. Are the Raiders that much better, right? Like, Geno looked great. They looked explosive. He leads the league right now in plays of 20 or more yards. So do the Raiders really have it? But can that really compare to the Chargers? Because they looked like the best offense in football with Justin Herbert.
Right, but it seems like they're getting credit for that game, and the Raiders aren't, for going into a tough New England place in week 1 and getting a win there. I think the Chargers are a solid fade coming off that elite performance. Market is likely overvaluing them. I think this line should probably be closer to 2. So I like the Raiders at +3.5 if you can get over that key number of 3. I think this is a great spot for the Raiders.
Okay, well, it looks like you're on the same page here. Anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, look, this is a Raiders team that is just going to be better this season than people think. Pete Carroll is a massive upgrade as head coach. I mean, he's got the juice back. The Silver Fox stomping around in the silver and black. You'd love to see it, chomping that gum left and right. He had a little bit of a revenge game in New England, right? 30-year-old revenge game. Yeah. The guy started that one. And this is a hated rivalry between these two coaches. Like, Jim Harbaugh followed Pete Carroll to the Pac-12. He followed him to the NFL, to the NFC West, and now he's followed him to the AFC West. And they've calmed down between the two of them, but I think Pete Carroll loves to get Jim Harbaugh's number, and the 3.5 to me, very disrespectful to a Raiders team that has some good quarterback play from Geno. Could get a big game from Ashton Genty as well, and we'll keep this within a field goal late into the night on Monday for the East Coasters.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I guess you could say it's a decent amount of respect to give the Chargers 3.5, or I should say to lay 3.5 on the road with the Chargers, but they just look so good. Justin Herbert looked flawless. Larry, I know you like the Chargers here.
Yeah, his ADOT was over 10 yards per throw. I mean, this is the Chargers offense that we were hoping to see last season, and they started off so conservative. It looks like they've totally turned the page. They got Keenan Allen converting on 3rd downs, Quentin Johnston making plays. You also have Ladd. So I think this offense will overwhelm a secondary that might be a bottom 5 secondary. We didn't see it last week against New England. I think it will be exposed on Monday night.
The hook scares me. I wish it was a 3. All right, let's look at the records from week 1, and then we'll give out our best bets for week 2. We've got RJ, 1-0. We got Larry, 0-1, and Will, 0-1. So far, RJ, it's early, but you are in the lead. So we'll let you start us off for week 2. What do you got, rapid fire?
Yeah, Broncos -2 seems like the most typical overreaction line coming out of week 1. Thing 2 is the absolute lowest you can logically make this, so I love getting it. I think it should be a lot higher.
All right, Larry, Austin Eckler.
Over 2.5 catches. They could be trailing. He could get 4 or 5.
All right. Will, Lions.
Give me the Lions -5.5. Think they run it up on the old OC revenge game style.
All right. And since I'm new here, I'm going to give 2. I've got the Eagles laying 1, and I'll go Giants, Cowboys under 44.5. Thanks, everybody, for hanging out with us. This was fun. Thank you for joining me in studio. RJ, Larry, and Will. You can catch the Early Edge every day, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. on SportsLine YouTube channel. And we got CBS Sports HQ Spotlight up next here on CBS Sports Network. Have a great day.